Good morning and welcome to the VIP seat. In today's top stories, we're talking about the scary news in the eVTOL industry and how the FAA's decision to replace meteorologists is frightening some experts. Happy Halloween. Welcome to the podcast, Jordan. I'm your host, Jessie Naor, and today we've got Jordan. Welcome.
Thank you, Jesse. It's a pleasure to be here. And I wish we had a full length camera. I've got my Halloween socks on today, so I'm being festive.
Yeah, I did think about maybe putting a costume on, but I'm like, this is a serious business show. I need to be serious.
Toss my captain hat away.
All right, folks, sit back, buckle up, and let's take off. All right, Jordan. So you were at NBAA last week. Actually, I missed it. It's my first time missing it in many, many years. So how was the show? What was going on over there?
I was actually pretty impressed by this year's show. I heard other people say, kind of compared to last year's show, we're all aware of the reduced footprint at the static display. But honestly, walking on the floor of this show, and I shared this sentiment with other people, it felt special. Everyone was very elated. There was tons of energy. I likened the energy of this show to that of like schedulers and dispatchers. Like S&D is always super high energy. Everyone's super positive, where base tends to be a little bit more kind of buttoned up. But the energy was really electric this year. There was almost a benefit to having a reduced footprint at the static because it funneled more people to the convention hall. And so, I mean, the convention hall just seemed packed, and condensing the show into just one wing of the convention center as opposed to having it in two. One was just much easier from a navigation standpoint. But then once again, having everyone in one central location, I thought it was a really great show. All of the presentations were awesome. The having these eVTOL aircraft on the floor, I think, gave kind of a unique spin to the collection of aircraft that are typically there. You saw some new vendors that were there. Overall, I thought it was really, really awesome. Selfishly, I'm now the chairman of NBAA's Young Professional Council, and we had a stunning young professional turnout this year. We actually had our highest attendance ever at any Pro kickoff event. I think we had about 200 people was like our highest grossing at our previous events, and we had over 400 this year. So we almost doubled like our largest number of attendees at our Pro Happy Hour event. So personally, that was phenomenal. Me having a huge kind of transition in my chair position on the council. It was awesome getting to be at the helm and watch all this. So it was tons of great energy that I saw from my personal projects, but then just from everyone that attended the show. Everyone was super elated, and everyone had really positive things to say about how this year is going to close.
That's awesome. Yeah, you guys are doing such a great job on the OPRO Council. I mean, it's just such an active organization, and you guys all seem so positive and excited about bringing people in, and that's wonderful to see in our industry because I think when I first got into the industry, it was a lot of who are you? I don't want to talk to you. Please talk to me. Someone, let me be part of, what's going on. And I had to work my way through that. But you guys are really kind of extending this arm out, which is very cool and very beneficial for our organization to bring young folks in.
And there's a real turning of the tide too, because I think when the movement started, and we just celebrated our 10-year anniversary of YoPro, so that was kind of momentous in itself. And I think at the conception of this group, it created a bit of a divide. Like whenever you're segmenting a certain portion of the work population, there wasn't much communication between the YoPro group and the more senior professionals, and the more senior professionals almost it seemed as though they took a stance to not want to be included. To let us have our space, they have their space. But year over year, we are seeing more bridging of the gap, and which is really awesome. Like there is more inclusion. Those who don't are Yo pros by definition want to attend the events, and they want to capture this lightning in a bottle that we have, and that's part of the reason why we created this space as well. Was to create a voice for this population, and we're being heard. And so it's awesome to see how far we've come, and I'm excited for what's ahead of us.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think, if you're anyone who's trying to recruit top talent and motivated people that have great personalities, you should get to a YoPro event because they are there and
It's
they're leaders.
it's
Cool. Well, speaking of what's going on in the industry and the shows, and people being inclusive, Jack Sweeney, the infamous jet tracker from X and Twitter and Meta and wherever else he was posting it, has officially been shut down. This has been in the news for many, many years. He was tracking Elon. He was like semi bribing Elon Musk at one point, and then Taylor Swift said she was fearful for her safety from this guy tracking her. But he has finally been shut down. It started with X, and now apparently Meta last week has officially blocked him from the platforms. So looks like potentially some more security for the industry out there.
and this is I hate seeing entrepreneurs being having their product being taken away from them. But when it comes to a matter of safety, I'm fully behind it. As an employee of Clay Lacy, as an aircraft manager, I've been on the receiving end of phone calls from aircraft owners inquiring on why they can see their information, why they can see their aircraft. We know all that we can only control so much of what's visible to the public. And props to Jack Sweeney. He's a wizard in how he's able to navigate all the technical loopholes to make this information public. But there are parameters that have been set on why the average person does not have this information.
Right.
And you touch on it, it's safety. It's in this day and age, especially with all of the attacks there are against private aviation as a whole, like set aside the individuals who own the aircraft, it makes it really dangerous when people know the exact whereabouts of where these very influential people are. I hope that Jack is able to take his talents and turn it into something that's positive.
Yeah. He started out, I mean, I think originally he was trying to highlight the, greenhouse gas emissions and the carbon impact and everything. And like, there's a little sliver of a good idea there. But again, like these are people that are just moving targets, and to give information on where they are at every moment. Maybe he should have just delayed some of his information if he really wanted to make this, known and make a point. Okay, I get it. But then, yeah, there is that level of safety. And a lot of people, especially in private aviation, don't understand how much is foiable, freedom of information request with the FAA. You can ask for a lot of information from the FAA and they have to give it to you under FOIA. And I think he has figured out, I interviewed him a couple years ago about this. He figured out how to structure those requests and how to get that information and do it in a way that nobody else has really done it. So hats off to the little genius. I do, I respect it. But at the same time, I think all these people are a little tired of it at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. Once again, I'm not going to knock someone for finding a creative solution to a problem, so long as it's safe. And so, creating fear and instability is doesn't benefit anyone. And so, like I said, I really hope that he is able to take the experience and knowledge that he's gained through this and use it for good.
I'm sure he will, and he's a sharp kid, and I'm sure he will figure out how to use his tech skills and investigative skills for other good projects in the future. So our next story, I found this very interesting. Just came out a couple days ago, but the FAA has decided that they are going to get rid of in-person meteorologists at their centers, and they're going to be going to some automated system. And the reason this was established in the first place, I was looking back at some of the history of this. There was an accident in 1977 with Southern Airways, killed 72 people, including 9 on the ground, 20 passengers, and 2 crew did survive. But it was due to the FAA and the pilots not having accurate weather information. So the decision was made to put meteorologists at all these locations. And we're not talking about that many locations, it's like 21 centers across the US. And I gotta say, I love automation. I'm very interested in technology. This one smacks a little bit of, is that a good idea?
I'm right there with you. I am one who loves tech. I love innovation, but once again, this industry, the safety is paramount. Safety has to come first, and to eliminate all of the positions seems kind of egregious to me. I think this could have been a slow rollout, and maybe it was, and that's not information that we were privy to. But to eliminate all of the positions seems quite outstanding.
Yeah.
there's a human element to that conversation that can't be replaced by technology. I think technology can certainly benefit the process, and I would have hoped that that was a first solution as opposed to just taking, butts out of seats for the sake of, of saving some money. Now, I'm sure they did their due diligence and practice in testing this equipment, but it is unfortunate they couldn't keep a few of those, individuals. I don't know how you go about choosing who stays and who goes, but to just eliminate everyone from all the centers. Um,
Seems like a rash. I don't know, maybe rash decision. And I get like, yes, a lot of the weather information these days is automated. We have these machines that tell us, okay, this is the wind shear, this is everything else. But I think too, especially when you're talking about, the centers, they're controlling a huge swath of land and, meteorological impacts. And weather is just so nuanced. I even look at like our hurricanes. We're not really good at predicting where they're going to hit, how they're going to hit, why they're going to hit. A lot of this stuff is quick and changes. And I'm not a meteorologist, but I have talked to a friend who works at a center as a controller, and she says she frequently, talks to the meteorology team about what's going on, what she needs to look out for. Look at all the reports of turbulence that have happened and people being injured from turbulence. I think maybe, let's do a pilot project in one location before we go and make this massive change, but we'll
I mean,
see.
it's as far as I see that the conversation, tech is really good at showing us what's in front of us. But to your point, there are meteorologists that have seen these conditions time and time over, and they can take the information that's in front of us and provide that relevant experience to give context to the entire picture. Yes, technology can tell you that a front is coming in, but that meteorologist is able to, well, back in 1992, we saw a very similar front come in, and it actually ended up pivoting in vector. And so there's context to the situation that is very pivotal to the conversation at large. We're
Yeah.
not just looking at data in front of us; we're taking that and interpreting it against historical data.
Yeah, and I have to imagine too, like I know, my dad lives in the mountains. He knows his kind of local weather way more than anybody else and what's going to happen. Yeah, like the data's there, but he can also get a sense. That's just a really anecdotal thing, but I don't know. There just has to be some really valid information, and again, the context of putting it all together that I would think is missing, but we'll see how this goes. The labor union, they're not part of the air traffic control union. It's the National Weather Service Employees Organization is sounding the alarm on this. So maybe we'll see a little rollback in the future, hopefully.
Fingers crossed. Hopefully, it doesn't. I hope everything goes well, and there is no need to revert decision. But yeah, we're just hoping for the best.
I want the meteorologist there. Just me, my personal opinion.
I would
For
love to have
whatever it's worth.
you, but yeah,
Yeah. So next story, the eVTOL industry. It's had its no, I can't say the word meteor. Okay, the eVTOL industry has exploded over the last few years. I'm having trouble saying
meteoric.
certain
There we
words.
go.
Meteoric rise. Their meteoric rise. Perfect. Over the last few years. But we're starting to see quite a few chinks in the armor. We already had Whisk, I think that was like last year, that had some major issues. Now, Lillium, who was actually at NBAA last week exhibiting, they're going to be going into bankruptcy proceedings. Apparently, the local government in Bavaria wouldn't grant them a $50 million loan, which caused a whole number of other lenders not to come in. So they're going to be going bankrupt. They could come back, they said, after they reorganize, but not great news for them. On top of that, Joby also has been raising more capital, got a big investment from Hyundai, but is also diluting their shareholders in the process of doing more capital raises, which is causing a lot of investors to go, okay, so I just put this cash in and now it's diluted. When are we actually going to be producing the eVTOL? So it's an interesting time. I mean, did you get any sense of that at the show last week, or everyone was just like, oh, look at our beautiful machines?
So more the latter. Everyone was just kind of stunned by the machines, and I was one of those people as well. As I mentioned earlier, I love tech. I am all for these new aircraft that are taking off. No pun intended. I spoke at an event at Georgia Tech last night, and was speaking to one of the students, and we both kind of had this moment, like, we are essentially living like we're seeing new aircraft come to market, new, like, and not just like a new rendition of another, fixed wing aircraft. Like we're seeing new, completely clean sheet new aircraft come to market. And I was like, yeah, it's almost like, we like being your grandparent, great grandparents, and watching the Model T go, transform into, the vehicles that are on the road today. This is just unprecedented stuff for us, and so I've been super excited about it. The benefit that these future aircraft will bring to society, I think, is just enormous. And from, just passenger transportation to cargo to EMS. I mean, it just has so many applications, utility, parapublic. I've been super excited about this technology. And so it has been sad to see some of the hurdles that these companies are facing. But as someone who worked for an OEM who is involved in this space, it's not all that surprising because I understand the investment necessary to take a product from idea to first delivery. And these have been fixed wing and rotorcraft that we are all familiar with. These are platforms that we are familiar with, and I've seen how long it takes to get these aircraft to first delivery. So, for an entirely new type of aircraft, I think that a lot of these manufacturers just may not have been fully aware of the investment necessary
Yeah.
to complete this task. Um, I believe in competition, and I hope that this market stays competitive. But I would not be surprised, given the environment, if the eVTOL and AAM products that are coming from the historic OEMs are the first to make it to market, just because they have the deeper resources.
Yeah, and that's kind of been my observation too. And also, I look at Joby, they're trying to do everything. Like they're trying to make every component, every part of it. That's a lot of challenges to take on in one moment versus the OEMs who kind of like we've been through this before. We're going to get this person to do the engines, we're going to get Thales to do this, we're going to get Garmin to do that, and then put it all together and make it all work. But I think too, the investors, especially people who are not from the industry, they looked at this and they go, wow, this is exciting. This is going to take over the world. Yes, it may, but everything just moves very, very slowly in aviation. And most investors are looking for a return and, a 5 to 7 year span. That is not going to happen in this space. It's just not. So I feel like this is partially people kind of getting exhausted and saying, okay, we didn't get to barrel through this like Uber did. Like, yeah, because it's aviation and you don't barrel through anything with the FAA and safety and everything else. So I have hope, and I would really like to see them flying one day. My husband says that, he wants to get one and have it in our backyard. He's a helicopter pilot. So he thinks this is awesome. But I still think we've got quite some time before this is coming to fruition.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'd been really excited about some of the front runners in this space, and with Lillium in particular, I that airframe, that design is just so unique.
Mhm.
And I think they had like over 400 already like
Oh,
deliveries
yeah.
that were slotted or LOIs.
780 firm orders already and MOUs. Yeah.
I mean, you and I know, what happens when there's a minor, supply chain disconnect in fixed wing aircraft.
Mhm.
So, let alone like a company is stalled right now for capital funding. That 2026 delivery is, I mean, that's gone. That was gone last week. Like,
Yeah.
well, the goalpost just keeps moving further and further in this industry, and it's sad because, and I work for a company that has an FBO business line, and we're starting to build infrastructure for these new platforms. So it leaves us in a weird position. It's this chicken and egg thing. Like the product can't exist without the infrastructure, but who's willing to invest into the infrastructure if the product keeps getting delayed further and further out? So it puts Clay Lacey and other FBOs of the world who are investing into the space in a kind of a precarious situation.
Yeah, it's the classic chicken or the egg, when do I install the charger? And the infrastructure too. I mean, these things are going to need a lot of power. This is not like your basic, plug in the wall and charge it up. Like you're talking about serious infrastructure changes to a lot of airports that have very antiquated infrastructure in the first place. It's going to take some, I think, probably government grant funding and a lot of other things when we finally do get there. But that's a great segue to the next story on Sky Harbour, who's a kind of a newbie in the FBO space, but one of the few companies that went public during the SPAC craze of 2021 and is actually doing well. And full disclosure, I'm invested in them because I love their business model. So I just have to put that out there before I'm talking about them. And I've written too, I write on Seeking Alpha. I do investment analysis on certain companies, and Sky Harbor is one of the ones that I cover because I think it's really unique and interesting. They've just secured another $240 million in funding, which will get them through 2026 at this point to build all their campuses. It's a really unique model because they're not like that traditional FBO. They're not selling fuel. This is really kind of, a private hangar. They service the customers kind of in conjunction with the FBOs on the field. So I don't know. What do you think, Jordan? Do you think this has legs, this model?
Oh, 100%. 100%. So I'm a big fan of Sky Harbor as well. Andre and Miller are really great people, and had a chance to connect with some of their folks last week. And as someone whose job it is to build remote flight departments, I love what they're bringing to the space. They are bringing a new and a unique twist to what your private aviation experience looks like. Also, the more hangar space, the better.
Yeah, we
You
need
know,
it.
they need it. It is. I'm a huge fan of what they're doing at Sky Harbor, and I think that they've had so much success in this space because their product resembles something that investors are already familiar with. If
Mhm.
we parallel this to eVTOL AAM, these are technologies that no one can. Yeah, it looks kind of like a helicopter, but it's not, and it's kind of like a plane, but it's not. But most folks understand real estate, and given the supply and demand situation that we're in right now, well, yeah, there's very little real estate out there. So let's pump some money into this company that is able to build this infrastructure without all of the other expensive legs that come with opening up a whole FBO and MRO station and getting fuel involved. They create the physical space and aircraft come.
Yeah, it's very simple. We will build this beautiful hangar that's your exclusive use. We'll, bring it in and out as you need it. We'll fuel it, but we're not the ones you're dealing with on fuel. You got to, deal with the local FBO. But that also allows them to get into spaces that a lot of people can't. A lot of people want to, open up a brand new hangar, but they want those fuel rights because that's, a really big deal. They can go into the Miamis and the New Yorks and everywhere else because they're like, hey, I'm not trying to compete on your fuel business. I'm just trying to build a nice experience for a private customer. And like you said, it's that, consistent real estate returns. It's a specialized kind of real estate. And there is just not enough space for all the airplanes that are out there to go somewhere. So they've got kind of a captive market.
100%, 100%. And I heard how they are with some of their new projects, how they are creating some creative nuances in their product to make it even more accessible to more people. And so, yeah, I'm a big fan of what they're doing out there.
Yeah, it's very
I'm looking
cool.
forward to putting one of my planes at Sky Harbor.
There you go. But all the T hangers that are getting knocked down, they're probably annoyed with it. But it is what it is. It's the way of the world. And speaking of the way of the world and outer space, Boeing is finally trying to get out of the space business. According to a Wall Street Journal report, they're trying to exit, which is not surprising considering the recent Starliner debacle, the crew members being stuck at the International Space Station until Elon Musk's SpaceX. I'm always talking about Elon Musk on this show, but until he came to rescue them. On top of, there was another project with the Artemis crew, was we're supposed to go to the moon, but that has faced multiple delays and cost overruns. And gosh, I just feel so bad for Boeing. They used to be, a jewel in the American manufacturing world, but they're not doing so well lately.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate. Boeing being one of those just historic companies in this industry, they're getting kind of long in the tooth. It seems like it's ironic a company that designs such technological products is still kind of antiquated in some aspects of the business. It has made space for companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin to kind of step in and bring the industry into the future. And so once again, I love competition, and these companies do at least appear to be moving, faster and smarter than Boeing. But in the same sense, it's sad. Everyone is familiar with this brand name of Boeing. I hope that this pivot allows them to reallocate their resources in making Boeing what Boeing used to be. So if it takes them getting out of space to improve their commercial division or into their military and defense divisions, so be it. But it is shocking to not have Boeing and space travel in the same
Yes.
conversation.
I know, because I mean, we're talking about, they've been involved in this, I think, since the is a carrot. I read it somewhere. But I mean, they were involved in the International Space Station, which is going to be decommissioned, in the next few years. They've been so integral in that world. But like you've said, this is probably a time for them to regroup and refocus on what are our core competencies. I mean, they don't design a lot of new aircraft these days. They just kind of keep reinventing. So like, who is Boeing going to be in the future? And it probably starts with, okay, let's cut out, we know we're not doing this well, let's give this to someone else that can maybe take it and run with it. But it will certainly be a sad day when Boeing's no longer in the space business. If it happens, it's just rumors at this point.
Well, I believe in those tea leaves in this conversation.
It makes sense.
But as we said, yeah, I do hope it's to make the company greater ultimately.
Yeah. No, I want to be able to say again, if it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. All right. Well, with that, we're going to wrap up the pod today. Thank you for joining us. The VIP seat is the best way to get your top stories in business aviation each week in a quick and simple format that you can listen to on a drive. Make sure you're sharing this with your friends. We can't keep bringing you awesome co hosts like Jordan today if you don't share. So we look forward to your comments and suggestions, and we'll see you next time on the VIP seat.